Morning light spilled through the cafe window, turning the steam from Evelyn's cup into ghostly ribbons. She hadn't planned to come here. She never did on Tuesdays. Yet fate, or something crueler, had led her to this seat, this view, and to him. A stranger at the counter, sleeves rolled back, revealing a flash of gold that froze her breath. Her husband's watch. The same scratch across the glass, the same engraving she had traced 1,000 times. The room faded, sounds dimmed, and only the ticking in her memory remained. He turned slightly, his face half in shadow, unaware of the storm unraveling behind her stillness. Evelyn's pulse thundered as denial collided with dread. She rose, coffee untouched, legs trembling, because if that watch was real, then everything she'd buried, grief, hope, truth, was about to claw its way back to the surface. The stranger left the cafe moments after Evelyn, his stride calm, unhurried, as if the world owed him its pace. She followed from a distance, her breath shallow, rain misting her face. Every turn of his head sent her pulse racing, every glint of gold on his wrist cutting through her resolve. She didn't know what she planned to do. Confront him? Ask where he got the watch? Or run before the truth could answer? The city blurred around her, honking cars, flashing lights, the heartbeat of life pressing in. When he stopped at the crossing and glanced back, their eyes met for the first time. His gaze wasn't startled. It was knowing, and in that silent exchange, Evelyn understood something she couldn't name. The past had recognized her. He turned into a narrow alley, the kind time forgets. Brick walls streaked with moss, the scent of rain and gasoline thick in the air. Evelyn hesitated at the mouth of it, every instinct urging her to retreat. But something about the way he moved, deliberate yet careful, drew her in. Her shoes splashed softly in shallow puddles, echoing between the walls. He paused midway, pretending to check his phone, the golden flash appearing once more beneath the dim streetlight. Then, without turning, he spoke, just 2 words that sliced through her fear like a knife. "You're following me." The sound of his voice, calm, deep, and unsettlingly familiar, froze her where she stood. The alley seemed to close around them, the rain whispering secrets to the stones. For a moment, Evelyn couldn't breathe. The sound of his voice was more than recognition. It was memory. Something in the cadence, the warmth beneath the edge, pulled her back to a night long gone. Laughter over wine, a whispered promise, the echo of love she thought she'd buried with him. "Where did you get that watch?" she demanded, her voice shaking more from disbelief than fear. The man turned slowly, water trailing from his hair, his expression unreadable. "It was a gift," he said, "from someone who didn't need it anymore." His words struck her like thunder, shattering every certainty she had left. She took a step closer, eyes fixed on the watch, the past unspooling between heartbeats. The silence stretched until the sound of rain became deafening. Evelyn's breath hitched as she whispered, "Who gave it to you?" He hesitated, his eyes narrowing as though measuring what she already knew. "Daniel," he said quietly. "He told me if I ever met you, I should tell you. He's sorry." The world tilted. The street spun. The name she hadn't spoken aloud in years filled the air like a ghost. She stepped back, shaking her head, the alley warping around her in watery reflections. Lucas watched her, the watch ticking faintly between them. The sound cruelly alive. The rain fell harder, washing the words into the street, but they clung to her like scars. He knew her husband's name. And somehow, that was only the beginning. Evelyn waited outside the cafe again, the same one where it began. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective, like glass over secrets. She didn't expect him to return, but something told her he would. People tied to guilt always circle back. When Lucas appeared, he looked different now. Alert, watchful, almost expectant. She stepped from the shadows before her courage dissolved. "You said you knew Daniel," she whispered. His eyes softened, a flicker of pity or pain crossing them. "Knew him?" he said quietly. "I worked with him. We were close." The word hung between them, stretching into the past like a fracture. Evelyn's voice trembled as she asked, "Then, why didn't I know you?" He hesitated, glancing down at the watch. "Because he never wanted you to." Inside her apartment, the walls seemed closer than usual, heavy with memories. Evelyn pulled out the old photo box she hadn't touched since the funeral. Laughter, vacations, promises trapped in glossy prints. But one picture stopped her heart. Daniel stood beside a man whose face she'd seen only days ago. Lucas. Both smiling, both wearing matching watches. Her pulse surged. How could that be? She ran her fingers over Daniel's image, her mind clawing through denial. He had told her the watch was one of a kind. But here was proof. Two of them. Two men bound by something deeper than friendship. She picked up her phone with shaking hands and dialed the number Lucas had given her. It rang once before a low voice answered, almost gently. "I was wondering when you'd find that." He chose a bar on the riverfront, the kind where the past feels welcome. Evelyn arrived first, nerves coiled tight, the hum of the city muffled beneath the low murmur of conversation. When Lucas entered, she felt the air shift. His presence calm, measured as if he'd been rehearsing this moment too. "You lied," she said before he could sit. "You said the watch was a gift." He nodded. It was from him. Before everything fell apart, she leaned forward, her voice breaking. "What did you mean when you said he was sorry?" Lucas met her gaze, his tone grave. "Because he didn't die by accident, and because he made me promise to tell you when it was time." Evelyn couldn't sleep. The words replayed in her head. He made me promise. What did it mean? She went to Daniel's study, untouched since the day he died. Dust coated the books, the faint scent of cedar still lingering. She opened the desk drawers one by one, her fingers brushing old receipts, faded letters, forgotten sketches. Then her hand stopped. Taped beneath the drawer's lining was a small brass key wrapped in an envelope bearing her name. Her breath caught as she unfolded the note inside. "If you're reading this, I couldn't protect you. Go to the cabin." Her knees weakened. The cabin. Their secret place in the woods. Suddenly the watch, the stranger, the lies all pointed there. And for the first time, fear began to look like destiny. The phone rang as thunder rolled outside. Evelyn hesitated before answering. "You found it," Lucas's voice said. "Don't go there alone." She clenched the key, heart racing. "Why?" she demanded. "Because that cabin isn't just a memory," he replied. "It's where he hid the truth, and some things don't want to stay buried." The line went dead. Evelyn stared at the window, the storm reflecting her turmoil. She glanced down at the key, the metal cold against her skin. The watch, the man, the message, all converging into one path she couldn't turn from. Outside, lightning split the sky. The time for mourning was over. Now, it was time for answers. The road stretched endlessly through the forest, trees crowding the car like silent witnesses. Evelyn drove with trembling hands, the brass key heavy in her pocket. The radio murmured static, a ghost of voices she couldn't quite hear. Every mile pulled her deeper into the past she thought was buried. She remembered Daniel's laughter here, their weekend escapes, the way the air had smelled of pine and freedom. Now the same woods felt watchful, colder. As she turned down the narrow dirt path, the cabin appeared. Dark, still, waiting. She killed the engine and sat for a long moment, afraid to step into whatever waited inside. The storm clouds pressed low, and for the first time she whispered to the empty seat beside her, "Daniel, what did you do?" The key turned too easily. like it had been waiting. The door creaked open, releasing a stale breath of dust and memory. Evelyn stepped inside, her flashlight slicing through the dark. Everything was untouched. The rug, the books, the faint smell of Daniel's cologne still clinging to the air. On the mantel sat their old wedding photo, smiling faces trapped in time. Her chest tightened as she whispered, "Why here?" The beam of light caught something on the floor. A small wooden box, half buried under a fallen blanket. She crouched, fingers trembling as she lifted it. The lid bore a single word burned into the grain: truth. The box was locked, and suddenly the silence around her didn't feel empty. It felt aware. She found it under the bed. A small black recorder, dusty but intact. Her hands shook as she pressed play. At first, only static. Then his voice, "Daniel?" Alive, laughing softly, the sound breaking her in two. "If you're hearing this, Ev, I couldn't tell you the truth. They would have come for you too." Her breath caught. His voice grew lower, urgent. "Lucas isn't who you think he is. He's the only one who knows what I did, and what I had to hide." A crash in the recording. The sound of footsteps, then silence. Evelyn dropped the device, her pulse roaring in her ears. The shadows seemed to shift with her panic. She whispered to the dark, "What did you do, Daniel?" The next hours passed in a haze of searching. Evelyn tore through drawers, books, and walls, until her flashlight beam found a loose floorboard beneath the rug. She pried it open, her breath ragged. Inside lay an envelope marked, "In case she comes." Her heart pounded as she unfolded the brittle paper. Inside were photographs, Daniel standing beside Lucas, and another man she didn't know. Behind them, crates labeled with foreign markings, stacks of blueprints, and something metallic glinting in the corner. On the back of one photo, Daniel's handwriting, "Trust no one, not even him." Evelyn froze. Him? Which one? Her mind spiraled, the truth twisting like a blade inside her chest. The knock came just as the storm began to break. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the cabin like a verdict. Evelyn froze, the photographs clutched in her hands. Lightning flared outside, casting a fleeting silhouette in the window, tall, still, familiar. She opened the door slowly. Lucas stood there, rain dripping from his hair, eyes shadowed by exhaustion. "You shouldn't have come here," he said quietly. "But now that you have, you deserve to know the truth." He stepped inside and the cabin's light flickered. Evelyn's grip tightened on the photos. Then, "Start talking," she whispered. His gaze met hers, calm and haunted. "Your husband wasn't the man you thought he was. Neither am I." Rain hammered the cabin roof as thunder rolled through the trees. Lucas stood by the fireplace, water dripping from his coat, his silence heavy. Evelyn threw the photos onto the table. "What is this? What were they doing?" He looked down, jaw tight. "Your husband was part of something he couldn't escape." "So was I." She took a step closer. "You lied to me." He nodded slowly. "Because I made the same promise he did. To protect you." She stared, shaking her head. "Protect me from what?" His eyes lifted, and in them she saw something that chilled her deeper than the storm. From the people who killed him, and from the truth about why. Lucas moved to the corner, pulling aside a loose plank. Beneath it, an old metal box waited. "He told me to leave this here for you," he said quietly. Evelyn hesitated before opening it. Inside were blueprints, bank records, and a flash drive. Each paper reeked of secrets, transactions tied to false companies, coded documents signed only with Daniel's initials. "He was laundering money," she whispered. Lucas shook his head. "No." Exposing it, the words hit her like a blow. "He worked for them." Lucas continued, until he realized what they really were: a front for arms deals and political bribes. Evelyn stared at the papers. tears blurring the ink. "Then why didn't he tell me?" Lucas's voice cracked. "Because he knew it would cost you your life." Lucas handed her another envelope. Smaller, sealed with wax. "He wanted you to hear it from him," he said. Inside was a letter in Daniel's handwriting. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. "Eve, I lied to you to keep you safe. I worked with Lucas, but when we tried to expose them, they came after me. If he's there with you now, it means they finally found me." Her breath caught on the next line. "He was my brother in everything but blood. Trust him when I no longer can." The paper slipped from her fingers. "You were with him when he died," she whispered. Lucas nodded slowly. "I tried to save him, but he made me promise to walk away before they killed us both." Evelyn's tears fell silently into the firelight, each one hissing as it met the flames. Hours passed before either of them spoke again. Evelyn's grief simmered into resolve. She turned the documents over, noticing faint marks on the backs, coordinates, hand-drawn lines forming a map. "This isn't just evidence," she said. Voice low, "It's where he hid something." Lucas's brow furrowed. "He mentioned a safe house before he died, a place where the final files were kept." Evelyn looked up sharply. "Then we find it." Lucas hesitated. "They'll be watching. If we go, we don't come back the same." Evelyn's stare hardened. "I lost my husband once already. I won't lose his truth, too." The rain outside softened, leaving only the heartbeat of the clock and the echo of their decision hanging in the dark. The fire had burned low, the air thick with smoke and confession. Evelyn stood at the window watching dawn bleed through the trees. "He loved you," Lucas said quietly behind her. She turned, eyes red but steady. "Not enough to tell me the truth." Lucas stepped closer, his voice softer now. "He was afraid you'd follow him into the dark." She held his gaze. He was right. The words hung there, not of surrender, but of defiance. She reached into her pocket and placed the key on the table. "We go tomorrow," she said. Lucas nodded once, the flicker of the fire catching in his eyes. "Then it begins." Outside, a single bird broke the silence, and the forest exhaled with the weight of what was coming. Morning came like ash over the horizon. Evelyn and Lucas drove in silence, the map spread across the dashboard, the forest giving way to endless fields of gray. Every signpost looked abandoned, every mile heavier than the last. The coordinates led them far from the city to a place that wasn't on any map. "This is it," Lucas murmured, slowing the car as a derelict industrial building came into view, half swallowed by weeds and fog. Evelyn's throat tightened. The air smelled of rust and secrets. "He came here before he died," Lucas said. "He left something inside." She turned to him, her voice steady despite the dread. "Then we finish what he started." Together, they stepped into the silence of the forgotten. The gates were chained but not locked. Another silent invitation. Lucas pushed them open, the hinges shrieking like something in pain. Inside, the courtyard was littered with rusted machines and broken glass. Evelyn's boots crunched softly over the debris. He was here," she whispered, tracing her fingers along a metal door. Lucas nodded, lifting the flashlight. "There's a basement," he mentioned a vault. She met his gaze, a flicker of fear and resolve crossing her face. "Then let's open it." As they descended into the dark, the smell of damp concrete and oil filled the air. Each echo of their footsteps felt like the heartbeat of something waiting, something alive in the silence. The stairwell spiraled down into blackness. Evelyn's hand brushed the wall, her skin catching on the rough concrete. At the bottom, a heavy metal door stood waiting, marked with Daniel's initials. DH, her chest constricted. "He was here," she breathed. Lucas knelt, examining the lock. This was welded shut. Someone tried to seal it forever. Evelyn drew the brass key from her pocket, the one from Daniel's study. It fit perfectly. The click echoed like a gunshot. The door groaned open, revealing a small room lined with filing cabinets, maps, and a single flickering bulb. On the desk sat a hard drive labeled simply, Truth. Evelyn stepped forward, the air cold against her skin. "He left us everything," she whispered. "Or he wanted us to burn with it." Lucas connected the hard drive to an old laptop had brought. The screen flickered alive, revealing rows of encrypted files. Evelyn scrolled through, eyes scanning the words: contracts, offshore transfers, coded communications. Then a file caught her eye. Project Heart. Her stomach turned cold. She opened it. Inside, her name, her photograph, and details of her life, all marked as leveraged asset. The room spun. "They used me," she whispered. Daniel's marriage wasn't just love. It was protection. Lucas reached for her shoulder, voice low. "He loved you, Evelyn. That was real." Her tears blurred the screen. "Then why was I part of this?" Lucas's silence answered more than words. The truth was love twisted by survival, and she was the price. Evelyn's sobs quieted into stillness. She looked at Lucas, at the watch gleaming on his wrist. "Where did you really get that?" she asked, her voice low, controlled. Lucas met her gaze, something breaking in his eyes. "He gave it to me the night he died." Her pulse quickened. "And you didn't try to stop them?" Silence. Then softly, "I was there, Evelyn, but I wasn't fast enough." She stepped closer, her anger shaking loose from grief. "You said you wanted to protect me. Was that before or after you let him die?" He looked away, his jaw tight. "If I told you the truth, you'd hate me," she whispered, trembling. "I already do." The storm outside began again, its wind screaming through the ruins as the truth between them shattered. Thunder rolled through the ruins as Evelyn pushed past Lucas, her breath coming sharp, ragged. The air was heavy with decay and betrayal. "You were there," she hissed. "You watched him die." Lucas' voice cracked. "You don't understand what happened that night." She turned, eyes burning through tears. "Then make me understand." He took a step closer, his tone low, haunted. "He begged me to leave. He said if I stayed, we'd both die, and they'd find you next." The sound of rain pounding above them filled the silence that followed. Evelyn's voice broke into a whisper. "You left him." Lucas looked down, jaw trembling. "He made me promise to live, so I could keep you safe." Lucas' voice dropped, hollow and faraway. "It was raining like this," he said. "We were on the bridge outside the facility. Daniel had the files, the evidence. We were going to leak it that night." He paused, eyes unfocused. "But they found us. 3 men, armed, silent." He handed me the watch. "Said if she finds you, tell her I kept my promise." Then he ran into the fire. Evelyn's hand trembled. "And you let him?" Lucas' voice cracked. "He saved my life, Evelyn. I wanted to die with him, but he made me leave." The thunder swallowed her reply. The storm outside felt like the echo of that night. Grief reborn. Guilt refusing to fade. Back in the present, Evelyn stared at him through tears that refused to fall. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He took a long breath, his voice trembling. "Because I didn't just fail him. I betrayed him." She froze. Lucas looked away. "I was working with them at first. I thought we were building something that mattered. By the time I realized what they really were, Daniel was already too deep. When he turned on them, they sent me to stop it. But I couldn't." The words hit like a final blow. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. "You were one of them." His answer came like a confession from the gallows. "I was. And I've been trying to atone ever since." Evelyn's hands shook as she grabbed the laptop and hurled it across the room. "You lied to me. You used me just like he did." Lucas reached for her, desperate. No, I'm trying to make it right. She backed away, her breath uneven, her eyes wild. You think this is redemption? You think saving me now erases what you did? He stepped closer, voice cracking. He died because he believed you were worth saving. And I stayed alive to make sure his death meant something. The anger drained from her, leaving only exhaustion. You think I wanted to be saved? She whispered. All I wanted was the truth. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm. The storm had finally begun to die, its voice fading to a whisper. Lucas sank onto the floor, his strength gone. He made me swear to protect you, he murmured. Not because of what you knew, but because of who you are. You were his anchor. The only good thing in a world that had turned rotten. Evelyn knelt across from him, tears shimmering in her eyes. Then why does it still feel like I'm drowning? He met her gaze, voice breaking, because he wasn't the only one who loved you. Silence fell, sharp and fragile. The confession hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. For the first time, she didn't look away. The rain outside stilled, and the night exhaled. Dawn crept through the cracks of the ruined vault, pale and unforgiving. The storm had passed, leaving behind the scent of metal and regret. Evelyn sat against the cold wall, staring at the shards of glass on the floor, fragments of a truth she'd finally unearthed. Lucas dozed beside her, his breathing shallow, the golden watch resting loosely against his wrist. For the first time, it didn't look like a relic of the dead. It looked like a wound that never healed. Evelyn rose, her body trembling with exhaustion. What happens now? She whispered, though the question wasn't for him. The only reply came from the faint ticking echoing through the chamber. Steady, merciless, alive. They drove back in silence, the road glistening from last night's rain, the woods whispering secrets through the mist. The cabin stood waiting, unchanged, untouched, a witness to everything they had lost. Lucas carried the box marked truth inside while Evelyn lingered by the door, her reflection framed in the wet window pane. He built this place to hide, she murmured, but it feels like it was always meant to find me. Lucas set the box on the table, his gaze heavy with fatigue. Then maybe it's time to stop running, he said. She looked at him, at the watch, at the storm-stained world beyond. Somewhere deep inside, forgiveness stirred. Not for him, not for him, not yet. But for the woman she used to be. By evening, headlights cut through the fog. Detective Rowan stepped out, his coat flapping in the wind, eyes sharp with questions that needed no words. He looked from Evelyn to Lucas, then to the box on the table. You found it, he said flatly. Evelyn nodded. Everything they tried to bury. Rowan's gaze lingered on the watch, a faint frown crossing his face. You know what this means, he said quietly. Once this goes public, there's no going back. Evelyn's voice was steady, almost serene. There never was. The detective studied her a moment longer before sighing. He'd be proud, he murmured. For the first time, Evelyn believed he might be right. That night, Evelyn found the recorder again, the one with Daniel's voice. Her thumb hovered before pressing play. His words filled the room, softer now, frayed by time. Eve, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it, but I need you to know. Everything I did, every lie, was to keep you free. The sound wavered, static swallowing the rest. Evelyn closed her eyes, letting the silence speak for him. Lucas stood by the window, head bowed, as if afraid to breathe. When the tape clicked to its end, she whispered, You kept your promise. She lifted her gaze to the watch, the last heartbeat of the man she loved. And finally, she smiled through tears. Morning broke over the valley, quiet and golden. Evelyn stepped outside, the cold air brushing her skin like a benediction. Lucas stood beside her, silent, watching the horizon where the sun cut through the mist. In her palm lay the watch. Daniel's, now hers. Its ticking was steady, resolute, alive. "Time doesn't heal," she said softly. "It reminds." Lucas looked at her, eyes heavy with unspoken words. "What will you do now?" Yes. She closed her fingers around the watch and turned toward the rising light. "Life," she whispered. The camera lingered as she walked into the dawn, leaving behind the cabin, the lies, the grief, and the faint sound of a watch still ticking, steady as a heartbeat.